Here is my top 5 horror classics. I wonder if you agree. At number 5 we have The Fly, 1958. While scientist André Delambre is working on his matter transporter, he has a horrible mishap. After a series of trials not altogether successful, André decides to test his creation in the first human trial. He transports himself, unaware that a fly has entered the chamber, mixing their atoms and transforming himself into part man, part insect. The race is then on to retrieve the fly and reverse the process. The story was discovered by producer-director Kurt Newman. It had been published in Playboy magazine, and Newman brought it to the attention of the head of 20th Century Fox. The film was a success and took $3 million at the box office. The film also helped to boost the career of co-star Vincent Price and his status in the horror genre. The movie also spawned a couple of sequels in 1959 and 1965, but it was David Cronenberg who had massive success with the remake in 1986. At number 4 we have Frankenstein, 1931. In 1931, Universal Studios had lost some considerable revenue, but Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, had sold 50,000 tickets within 48 hours of it opening, and culminated in $700,000 worth of profit. So due to the success of Dracula, Universal decided to make Frankenstein. Henry Frankenstein, Victor in the novel, played by Colin Clive, is a scientist who assembles a body from corpses that he then brings to life. The monster is played by Boris Karloff, whose portrayal of the character has become iconic, and Jack Pierce's makeup has become the definitive look for Frankenstein. This movie is a real gothic-looking masterpiece, and still a horror fan favourite today. At number 3 we have The Wolfman, 1941. When Larry Talbot's brother dies, he returns to Llynhweli, Wales, his ancestral home, for the funeral, with the hopes of reconciling with his father, Sir John. Larry meets a local girl, Gwen, who runs an antique shop, and he purchases a walking stick so that he has a reason to talk to her. The stick is decorated with a silver wolf's head that represents the werewolf. Larry is smitten by Gwen, and although she initially is reluctant to accept Larry's advances, she does meet up with him and takes him to have his fortune read by Romany Gypsy, played by Bela Lugosi. Bella sees a pentagram on Gwen's palm, which is a symbol that she is the next victim of the werewolf. Subsequently, she is attacked by the werewolf, but saved by Larry, who is bitten in the process. This film was the second werewolf movie Universal had made, and was considerably more successful than the first. Lon Chaney Jr., who played the title character, would go on to reprise the role in 4 sequels. At number 2 we have House on Haunted Hill, 1959. Frederick Loren is very rich and very eccentric. He's throwing a party for his 4th wife Annabelle in a haunted house he's rented. Loren has invited 5 guests and promises to pay them each $10,000 if they manage to stay in the house for the whole night. The doors are to be locked after midnight, and no phones or radios are to be used. Each of the guests are complete strangers to the Lorens and each other. The only thing they have in common is their lust for money. During the night, the guests are subjected to various terrors. Will they make it to the morning light? This film is a true horror classic starring Vincent Price, a legend of the genre. Alfred Hitchcock became aware of the film's low budget and how well it performed, so it inspired him to make his own horror movie, which turned out to be Psycho. William Castle, who directed House on Haunted Hill, was a Hitchcock fan and tried to emulate him in his later work. With all older films, the effects look a little dated, but that somehow is part of its charm. The film has endured and has a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 80%. And at number 1 we have The Horror of Dracula, 1958. This is a masterpiece. It has the classic pairing of Peter Cushing's Van Helsing pitted against Christopher Lee's Dracula. For me, Lee is the definitive Prince of Darkness. Sorry, Lugosi fans. The plot loosely follows Stoker's original novel, but because of budget restrictions and the 90-minute running time, certain characters were dropped and the story was based in Central Europe. It is the end of the film that really stands out, the final battle between Van Helsing and Dracula, where Cushing, after being pinned in a corner by Dracula, runs across a table and pulls down the curtains, allowing the light to enter. While the Count is wishing that it had a higher factor of sunscreen on, Van Helsing forms a cross from 2 candlesticks and finishes Dracula off. Even the effect of the Count disintegrating is still an amazing one, and in my opinion stands up even today. I first watched this film many years ago when I was young, and this scene has always stayed with me. The film was critically well received and did well at the box office. It went on to spawn many sequels, but none, in my opinion, were quite as good as the first. I hope you enjoyed my roundup of the top 5 horror classics, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh yes, and I'll see you in hell.